whatever. We covered this last week, but I want you to think about these things and how they connect with what we just heard and what you just wrote. The key ideas that one could spend a lifetime studying in Buddhist practice around the idea of life is suffering or things are messed up is the idea of samsara, the cycles of suffering that we self-perpetuate. The obvious ones, and then the really deep and profound ones. And that's got a whole field of study. If you went to the Geshe Michael's 3-day teaching on the Wheel of Life, that's fundamentally what was taught there. Then you go through the 3 suffering, 84,000 mental afflictions. You know, there's nothing to do in Tibet but make lists. And so they made a list of 84,000 disturbing states of mind, all of which could be cleared up. Then you can subdivide levels of reality and which are suffering, which are not suffering, etc. And then the course that we're doing here every Thursday, the realms of existence. How many modes of being are there possible? What I call realms of existence. What are the possible realms of being that we as sentients, as beings, can experience this universe through? And so the realms of existence is a whole study on this idea of the suffering realms. That can help you. That can help you like getting a disease or having a strong emotional breakup or coming down to that humbling moment where you're fed up of things not working. Understanding that part of the world helps you. But it's not the point of Buddhist practice. Yeah? This lets you see this is water. Yeah? The mundane, the blah blah blah. But if you see it, the point, like in the video that we just saw, is that this could be a magnificent, beautiful experience. It could be the same stuff the stars are made of. Yeah? But it's just about the choice. But to make a good choice, we have to be informed. We have to be educated on that capital T truth. And then the next part of the knowledge over here is that we don't really know why things are messed up. So the more we try to fix them, the more we mess them up, because we don't understand, we're ignorant of the true causation, the true source of this suffering we have. So then the second thing that the Buddha taught, he said, well, hold on a second. Yeah, once you engage with this world, things break down. Things don't work the way you want them to, and therefore you suffer. You suffer because you really don't have a clue on what you need to do to make it better. Instead of doing the correct, meaning congruent with capital T truth, instead of doing the congruent thing to fix the problem, we exasperate the problem by adding fuel to the fire. So when someone's angry at us, the impulse is to be angry back, which produces more anger, which means we're angrier, and then it doesn't. We think that's going to solve it. Punching somebody in the head is going to make everything okay, and that's not the way things work. In fact, it's the opposite of things work. We're ignorant of the way things really work. So the first 2 big teachings of the Buddha were, look, things are messed up, and really, there's this reason they're messed up, and you don't know that reason. I discovered that under the tree, he said, right? So the core ideas are the causation of suffering, this idea of ignorance. Ignorance, not as in you're stupid, not as in you don't know anything, it's ignorance of the truth that produced that reality for us. Under investigation, you can get to the essence and the truth for you of why your life is the way it is. Yeah? So then you divide the universe into mental and physical. There's the idea of mind, the reincarnation, this big word emptiness, which is also selflessness, and wisdom are synonymous, and this idea of causation of karma. All these fields of study fall under this umbrella, if you're going to do any kind of grouping of why is the messed upness messed up and how am I causing it. So then the third thing he taught was that the mess can actually stop. Right? So it doesn't have to be this. It's not permanently messed up. It doesn't have to be that way. It's perpetual, meaning we rehabilitate it, but the mess can actually stop. Just doesn't have to continue. If we knew this next thing he teaches. So about the stopping, we can consider the evolution of our mind. We can get some cognitive proof. We can get some proof that the way we engage with our world does something to our mind, which then that mind engaging with the world is a different mind than the first one, and we can have, like we do at school, we put a child in school with no language, no numbers, nothing, and all of a sudden they speak Chinese, or they speak English, or they put together sentences, or they can add up, and they can create things, the internet. That mind wasn't born with the internet. Yeah? We educated that mind, that maybe was. No. We educated that mind, and just like that nominal evolution occurred, your mind can go beyond that bandwidth that we call normal human existence and transcend this nominal thing and look at this world through a completely different realm that is more congruent with capital T truth of the causation of the way the world is. So then there's a whole series of practices, etc., and you can get to the stories of Buddhists and superpowers and flying and X-ray vision and blah blah blah. That's all the mystical stuff that lots of Americans and lots of Westerners like to wear as a badge. It's like, I'm meditating so I can have the boomy or the blah blah blah. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not putting them down. I rarely have a mystical experience in my meditation, but I have a very real experience, the way Anna Heda talked about the rawness of once you get real with your practice. Yeah. So anyway, that can be a superpower too, looking at your truth. Then the concept of nirvana. I love chocolate, by the way. And Buddhism, as there is an end to suffering, and there's freedom from it. So then this whole practices and ideas come from that. And then of course the fourth thing.
Sorry, it's like Buddhahood plus. Like
I know. Then the idea that there is a roadmap, there is a map, there is a way to stop the mess upness, right? To de-mess upness, to undo the mess. There's actual steps, and so the traditional ones are the Eightfold Path or the Lamrim teachings of the three principal paths, and then you've got the vehicles, so Hinayana, Mahayana, and Tantra. Okay, so we talked about that. These are all terms. We can go into depth, and this is the place where we can go into depth to understand each one of those. But the bottom line is, things are messed up if you're really honest with yourself. The more you engage in an automatic way, without awareness, without thinking, the more we mess them up, usually. In fact, we've got no control about if we're honest, we've got no control about doing the 100 list of things and then getting the result we want. Yeah, we don't know the next match that's going to work and the one that's not going to work. We really don't know. And the fact that one of them doesn't work means we don't know how to make matches work. And that's a profound thinking thing. There's something else underneath. So, the Buddha said, I've invented, not I've thought about, not I'm considering. He's like, I just experienced viscerally. I've connected to reality. And I've seen, I've seen gravity, right? I've had a realization of gravity. I've seen a truth, capital T truth, that informs me on how to manipulate this world of mine, how to do true causation. And so the last two paths, the path of suffering can end, and there's a course to that. The path is what I want to talk about today. That was a break time, that was the video. Ignore the video.
Killed himself, you know that.
I know that, right? Thanks a lot. So, is there anything up there? I want to talk about five key steps that a being would go through to transcend a shitty kind of existence, an existence caught up in the nominal messed upness, all the way to awakeness, Buddhahood, full realization of that thing Anna said. I've got a suspicion that there's a bigger meaning there. In Buddhist terms, they call that Buddha nature and your potential, blah, blah, blah. We can give it whatever label we want, but you have to connect to the essence and idea to get this. So, Tsonglam means the path of, Lam means path, and accumulation as in gathering together. Yeah? The first of these paths, which was the beginning of what we were talking about, getting real, yeah, is this strong desire to overcome that suffering. So that's this strong desire to say, I'm sort of fed up about things not working. And not as in I'm going to hide from it, I'm going to try all these other strategies that I know in the back of my mind aren't going to work. I'm actually really fed up with it and I want to do something about it. So that's called Yeah, the path of accumulation is the beginning of this 5-path roadmap, if you like. There's many levels of granularity that the Buddhist practice leads you to. And this is like a warm-up for an aha experience of reality. Yeah? So the path of accumulation is called accumulation because you're actually accumulating the true courses that can free you from being stuck in a cycle. And one of the true courses is this strong desire to be free from suffering. And here's where we can get technical for those of you that want to learn about Buddhism as a thing. You have two main vehicles. You have the Hinayana path and you have the Mahayana path. Have you heard of those terms? Hinayana? They call it the lesser vehicle, but it's not because it's less. And the Mahayana path, which is the greater vehicle, not because it's greater than Hinayana. Both of them lead to freedom from suffering, but in slightly different ways. One is Buddha plus, and the other one is Nirvana. Right? So just to connect, you are sitting in life and you're like, I'm fed up. I now have a real strong desire to be free from suffering. I've tried the list of things and I'm still not happy. I've grabbed the Buddhism tag and after 3 weeks, 6 months, whatever, I'm still not happy. Now I'm getting a real strong desire to do something real about it, right? So when you get that, you get this thing called renunciation. And you need this, technically you need this thing called renunciation, this strong desire to be free from suffering. Renunciation means I'm fed up with things not working. To be classified for this warm-up to the big event, which is begin to collect the real courses to be propelled out of the cycles of suffering that we are stuck in. So Path of Habituation, and there's a whole bunch of study that you need to do that, but it's really defined. Renunciation is defined by two things. How about put it up there? Defined by, there it is. One definition for renunciation is coming out of the worldly life, meaning it doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It doesn't mean you have to stop looking fabulous. It just means you stop the attachment to those things that think those things are going to free me. Leaving the worldly life traditionally meant I'm going to go and become a monk or a nun, and so I'm saying goodbye to mum and dad. But that's not what it truly means. What it truly means is your mind stops engaging with this nominal world, the cars, the shopping, the apartments, the look, the etc., as the thing to save you. You stop thinking that's the thing. You go, I'm done with that. But it doesn't mean you don't enjoy chocolate. I love chocolate. Yeah? It means you stop thinking that this will save me. You're still fully aware of your reality. This tastes awesome. And you should enjoy it because it's a beautiful thing. But it won't save. I don't mind if it's gone. I'm not attached to it in the way I used to be. There's a thing there. Okay? And then the second thing, it means definitely coming out of suffering, which means you're heading towards nirvana. Yeah, it's another name for renunciation. And what I was saying before is that motivation with which you think this begins you on one of two roadmaps. The Hinayana path, which leads to nirvana. Nirvana being defined as the permanent cessation of all mental afflictions. The permanent stopping of anything that disturbs your mind. Anything at all. Nirvana. Buddhahood is nirvana plus some more stuff. Right? Buddhahood is that plus stuff. So what is the plus stuff? What's beyond nothing at all disturbing your mind? So Buddhahood, just very simply put, is nirvana with omniscience, with knowing everything of all time, past, present and future. That's a little trippy and really difficult for me from my fish roll to connect to. There's an idea as a possible destination, if you like. I can understand it. And the reason there's a difference right here in your motivation between what we call Hinayana and Mahayana. Hinayana leading to nirvana, you yourself are free from suffering. Mahayana, you become a Buddha, which means you have omniscience which means you are able to connect with every sentient thing of past, present, and future with a kind of love. The reason the motivation is important here is because based on how you are fed up of things not working is how you take the next 4 steps of this roadmap. And it's not something you really can... I think what I'm trying to say is it's a thing you should be first of all aware and honest to yourself about. Yeah? I'm rarely on the Hinayana path, let alone on any other path. I'm rarely on the motivation of truly, I know I can do it as a faith practice, I've got to look after everybody. You know, but really I want to save my ass, people. You know, like that's my, if I'm honest with my motivation, that's the first thing that comes up. And I'm a little ashamed of it, it's terrible or whatever, so I work on it to try and elevate it. Because if I'm in the state where I dislike my state of life, and my state of life is bloody awesome, and I'm still unhappy, imagine the 7 other billion humans. Yeah? So the motivation here is if you enter this path of saying, I want to do something, I have a strong desire to stop suffering, the key is think a little bit about the stopping of that suffering. Can you add other beings to that besides yourself? And then you're beginning on another path. Mm-hmm.
So, but to what Anahita said, in either path, I'm probably Mahayana more than...
well, you can hear from Mahayana path. You want to say Colombia?
Yeah.
Or is it Puerto Rico?
Is that Spanish? Argentina too, man, I really know. But no,
Some Spanish country, yeah.
In the south.
In the south.
So I forgot what I was going to say. No, I remember.
Yeah.
So isn't it like to attain Buddhahood and bring everybody with you, you have to attain Buddhahood yourself first. You have to have compassion for yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Before
you even understand compassion for the rest of the beings.
So I'm going to ask you, if someone was drowning and you didn't know how to swim,
if
you did not know how to swim,
mm-hmm.
and you thought you could help them in any way at all, would diving in there with them save them?
No, probably no. We would both drown.
Mm-hmm. So if you had enough time to learn how to swim before diving in, or if you knew how to swim, I know it's a bad analogy, making efforts, trying. You only ever really know when you really know something. And of course, the only way to really make a difference to someone is to know it yourself for a truth.
Right.
Yeah? However, the fake it till you make it thing has a part to play in it.
I was going to say a better analogy would go get your swim teacher to dive in.
Nice.
For you.
Nice. Thank you. Hi.
But, I mean, I don't think that the blind should lead the blind, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if you and the people that surround you are in similar process, maybe in a different stage.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's a tiny difference, right?
Right, but everyone's looking to let go of that suffering and overcome. Maybe just being surrounded by, or accompanying someone and saying, I'm also doing that. Maybe that helps. You know?
Yeah, no, I think we've done it here today.
Yeah.
There is something in it. Yeah.
And so it's like that teacher-student and concept. Like we're all students, we're all teachers because we're all somewhere in that process that, you know.
You should try. The bottom line is you should try within the best of your capacity. If you find a teacher that can dive in, amazing. If there's no teacher to dive in, you try. Yeah, with the best of your capacity, but with awareness about the way that life is working for you.
Oh, just really short. You could say like maybe if you were learning how to swim and you knew pretty well, then like maybe you're risking drowning, but there's at least a chance.
Yeah.
And then
you could share instructions too.
You can share instructions. I think that my point is that there should be no problem or guilt in wanting to save your ass, because by saving your ass, you will have the realization that you need to save everybody else's ass.
No, I'm talking about my uncontrived urge. Okay.
Right.
If I'm looking at my instinct, my instinct isn't Mr. Pure. Okay? Have I changed it from what it was originally? Absolutely. I can tell you, guaranteed, I think about other people way more than I used to when I was in my 20s. Way more. As a genuine thing. Did I have 10 years of pretending? Absolutely. Did the pretending help? Absolutely. Did I create some good habits? Absolutely. Was some bad? Totally. Am I fixing those? Trying. Yeah? So, the bottom line is you should develop, if you can, develop the impulse, which doesn't take too much thinking, right? I mean, we just experienced it in this room. We're the same people. We're in the same boat, and we're like, I've got this issue, and I've got this issue, and we're all listening, very interested, right? We're like, oh, she does? Okay. Oh, I'm not so bad after all. You know, it's nice to hear each other's reality and connect to it and want to be understanding of that and help them. So there's even that impulse, that one will then, if we understand all the other ideas of karma and causation, etc., from the Buddhist point of view, that itself is enough of a seed for it to produce an uncontrived state of that. Yeah.
This reminded me of something that Geshe Michael said the third night when he was talking. He always does how to plant a powerful seed. And one of the things he said that resonated was that 90% of karma is your motivation.
Intention. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he talked about, like, in step 3, where you take them to Starbucks, that even in your crappy way, that you don't actually know how to swim, the fact that your motivation was pure is planting, like, a really strong seed. And even if what you tell them doesn't actually help them, it's this is what I heard. I don't know.
No, this is exactly
but
what.
Like that, yeah, it is this motivation that, that, I don't know, I lost my point, but that.
He said 90% is intention.
Yeah, and so if you could make your intention the Mahayana consciously.
And that happens consciously first, and then it becomes uncontrived. Yeah. So, but the first path, what qualifies you to be in this race at all out of the cycles of suffering, the first path is I'm sick of things not working. And you have this kind of renunciation. And then your motivation tells you which of the paths you're going to go into the next 4 steps. Does that make some sense? Here we go. The next lam, or path, is Jorlam. Good. Which means preparation. The path of preparation. Once you've realized that the things aren't working the way you thought they were working, you get to prepare. You've built enough accumulation. From a karmic point of view, you've got enough virtue in there. You start to do things more congruent to your truth, which gives it power. Okay, and therefore, you then begin entering the path of preparation, which is beginning to understand the misconception we have about reality. So we understand that suffering comes from misunderstanding our reality, that we suffer because we don't really know what this world is. And this is your beautiful example, is that this world is not real. There's something, I'm ignoring that word, it's not real. There's something to what you said. The way we engage with that world is actually what we misunderstand. Yeah, that engagement with this world, because we don't understand true causation, is what the mistake is. And in Buddhist literature, in all our practices, we call that ignorance. In the wheel of life, it's the pig in the center of those 3 animals. And so in Jorlam, we begin to prepare our consciousness, our mind, that thing that will emerge from the egg of hatching that we're building, that deeper us, that more transcendent us, yeah? The true nature of who we are as beings. We begin to investigate, first of all, with an intellectual understanding. So we begin to study and meditate, yeah? So one of the prerequisites, this warm-up to this race out of this cycle, in the first path, was some kind of taking care of the suffering of myself or others, right? Preferably a little bit of others. And so you build a little bit of something in that. Yeah, that's like a warm-up, a prerequisite for this big event moment that's going to come in a minute. And then the next part is begin to get to study. Let's like scientifically study causation. What is really producing life the way I experience it? What did the Buddha say? What did this text say? Let's begin to understand it and then do internal experiments and external experiments. And this is where the practice of meditation comes, because you can begin to slow your mind enough to see how you engage with a world that you call real. In meditation, you begin to investigate your reality in a way that is not going to happen out there in the world, working and running around, etc., because it's happening too fast. So you take a few moments every single day to investigate really how is my mind engaging with this thing I call reality. And then there's a whole bunch of literature, tools, exercises that help you analyze, in a true scientific way, analyze the way that your world appears to you and how your mind engages. And so you start breaking that ignorance with wisdom, which is this intellectual understanding of emptiness, or shunyata. And they say in Tibetan that you need to hear an explanation, you need to hear cognitively an explanation of emptiness about 3,000 times before it gets enough in your mind, because we're so the opposite of that. We're so habituated to see the opposite of that it doesn't get in. So from the Geshe Michael's students who uses the pen as an example to highlight the idea of selflessness or emptiness or shunyata, he uses the pen, right? If you've heard that 3,000 times, then it's going to get in.
That's why he does
That's why he does it over and over and over and over. So what I'm saying is the second path, the second thing that makes you a candidate for an experience that transcends these cycles of suffering is an intellectual understanding of the true nature of reality, this idea of emptiness, that things don't have a nature from their own side. That's a whole field of study, and it gives you a headache because it seems so difficult, and when you get it, it's so simple. It's so simple and it's so fast we miss it. It actually is the water. Yeah? Where it's water. And we don't see it because we're in it. So when someone explains it to you, like, what the hell is water? Yeah? So
we are it.
we are it and in it. Yeah? So an intellectual understanding first lets you see that you are in water, that you're in this thing. And it's not easy, and I wish it was. And when you think you got it, you go, oh, I've got that. I've seen emptiness in the morning, and then you get to a deeper level, and a deeper level, and a deeper level, right? So you have to get good at intellectual understanding and an application of this idea of emptiness in your everyday existence, in the way you hold a cup of tea, in the way you talk, in the way you hear yourself, in every single experience you have to look at what is the true essence of that experience. Where does it really come from? How is it that way and not some other way? And that is why you come to class here, because you can learn that, but it takes some time and effort. There is a secret there that is no secret, because when you see it, it's the truth, capital T truth. Okay? For the Buddhists in the room, the way to get there, to do the warm-up for that experience of understanding emptiness intellectually, is this idea of Chi Jedrak. Do you remember what that is, for those of you who are here?
Subject object characteristics.
General specific.
General specific.
Characteristics and
General and specifics.
Characteristics and...
There were 4 types.
Yeah, but what was the
General and specific.
right, the characteristics
I can't remember the other
specific, right?
Yeah.
General, whatever. But it's the same. It's both metaphors.
So the bottom line idea of Chi Jedrak is that we have experiences in our world, whatever they are, maybe looking at an object, listening to a sound or whatever, and our mind is so rapid and habituated to labeling it and constructing it into a thing. It does it so rapidly, sometimes per millisecond, that we don't see we're actually putting a construct on a thing that has no construct. Okay? So we're labeling, we're grouping constantly, unconsciously now. It's become such an ingrained habit that we are really literally producing this reality millisecond by millisecond, and us collectively and us as individuals. Understanding Chi tells you, describes to you how your mind does that, millisecond after millisecond. If that's true, if the idea of emptiness is true, then you could work backwards from that and say, well, what the hell made it what I experienced it to be? And you can construct this reality to be absolutely anything. Then paradise is possible, then freedom is possible, then Buddhahood is possible, and anything in between. No time to discuss it in a general Buddhist class, but this is the clencher, the path of preparation. The path of preparation prepares you, puts the groundwork for you to have a visceral experience of that thing we're constructing, because there is no nature separate to the way you're constructing. Another story. At the end of the path of preparation, and from here on we're getting into possibilities that you know may or may not sound verifiable for us just yet. You have what's called the direct perception of dependent origination. So at the peak of the path of preparation, if you're a practitioner of this path, the path that the Buddha said there's a roadmap out of suffering, right? First of all, the first path was a path of accumulation. You begin to accumulate with the good intent a whole bunch of causation to let you step into the next path. So first you fill up the things that work, that gives you enough energy to enter into the path of preparation, where you can actually study these things, get informed about the science of reality, and begin to build knowledge, intellectual knowledge, through meditation. You need a teacher for that, a teacher that's qualified, a teacher that's seen it. You need to find a teacher that writes for you. That's what's called a heart teacher, and it's like a glove. You can't get one size glove for everybody. There's one just for you. You're going to meet somebody, and that somebody is going to have just the right words for you. And they never existed outside of you in the first place, and that's another story, and that's wonderful and exciting and mystical, etc. But in reality, somebody has been saying words to you, someone has been showing you stuff to you, or someone will, and they become your teacher. They're the closest one to show you your experience of reality. And that's yours. When you come to see where they came from, you'll realize you made them. And then you must treat them as more real than they were before, because that's the only way you keep them. And that's where the hooks that I was telling you about that happen, they'll start happening to you, and you'll have an incredible experience that is true and real and verifiable, but still your mental projections. No contradiction, and it's magnificent. And there is no other truth but that one. There's nothing separate from that. There's another story. So you get this direct, at the peak of the path of preparation, once you've understood this idea of general and characteristics, this idea of the emptiness, that things don't have an inherent nature from their own side, you get an intellectual, you have some analysis of that day after day after day that habituates your mind. You have some meditation on that. You get a deep ingraining of that. So with analysis, which is reasoning and meditation, you get to the peak of that, which is called direct perception of dependent origination, where quite conscious, quite aware, sitting like this, you will have a deep constructing moment of your reality, and you see how you create it. You have a visceral, true experience where you see what normally seemed to you like a person talking to you or an object moving, and because you've habituated your mind and informed your mind a certain way, you will have a direct, visceral experience which feels like, I don't want to sound airy-fairy words. You feel like you're disembodied from this reality, but you're having an encompassing experience of reality, and you see what you always saw before, plus a million times more. You'll see exactly how your mind is grouping things together to create the reality you're having. And that lasts for a very short time. And you have this, you just saw something close to ultimate. Yeah? This marks your entry into the third path, which is called Tonglam, the path of
Habituation.
seeing. Yeah. Path of seeing, where you actually have a direct experience of the ultimate nature of things. That thing you've been preparing for. Yeah? So this marks your entry into that path. You have that direct experience that only happens in meditations. There's all commentaries about it lasting 15 minutes, 20 minutes. What happens in that thing we can talk about another time, but you have the peak experience I talked about in the previous path tells you see how things come to be, how things are dependently arising, and you have a direct visceral experience of that. In this experience, you actually have an experience of the opposite. How the nature of all objects, absolutely all objects, have no essence from their own side. So you're actually having an experience of a lack of a thing that never existed. So it's a double, that's why the Tibetans use a double negative all the time to point to this experience. Yeah? There's not much talked about the actual experience. There's a bunch of writing before that experience and a bunch of writing after the experience. The idea is that there is no you in that experience. As you know you get to see, you get to experience, you realize after the experience you get to see that ultimate thing, which in different levels of talking you call the more subtle level of me, the one that never disappears, the one that will always be there, the one that doesn't die. Yeah, and you come out of that experience in meditation, and the literature says, and the teachers that I've been fortunate enough to understand that they've had experiences like this, and that I can believe and verify for myself, which is the only thing I've got to share for you about this point, from this point on. At the point after you come out of that experience and you're still in meditation, you have what I call the Four Arial Truths, which is what the Buddha taught, the first thing he taught. Saying, hey, I just saw that life is suffering. And then it has a different meaning there. I just saw in that experience how life is suffering. That actually I produce the suffering. So the second path, the second real, I said, Arial truth, that I produce the suffering. With my ignorance of not knowing how to create a world, I create a suffering world because it's broken, because the causes are broken. And then I just saw how that suffering can stop. It doesn't have to continue. It's not a thing by itself. It's not permanently over there. I just saw it can stop. In fact, I just saw what it would take for me to become enlightened, nirvana'd, etc., etc. And then you can see the path to that, your own personal path. And there's a whole bunch of literature around that. So that marks, from the Buddhist point of view, a whole bunch of scripture, experiences, and instruction from teacher to student that explains these words on paper as real experiences you can have up to this point and beyond. Yeah? And that's not the end, but that's the main event. All the warm-up was, the prerequisite for this event was have some kindness in your heart. You're not the only idiot suffering. Yeah? That generates enough virtue in you, enough of that higher motivation to give it a powerful result, such as what I've just talked about. Then you need to do that under the instruction of a teacher, someone that gets you close, someone that you believe takes you close, someone you can verify takes you close. That's got power. And then you need to actually do it. You actually meditate and actually practice and study, etc. And then you build enough cushion hours and real hours to say, what is this world I'm in? And does it have to be the default setting that I landed here as a human? Could it be more than the default setting we all have? And so that video has a completely new level of understanding if you apply the idea of these 5 paths to it. At that point, that marks a change in you as a being, from a cyclical being to a being that's on the way out, they say, a stream enterer. And you enter the next part of this path that marks you as a person on the way out. This is called the Path of Habituation, because you spend the rest of your time habituating your reality to what you saw in meditation. The bottom line is, you've been living inside the matrix up until that moment in meditation. You saw the code in the matrix at that point, and you saw that there's something else happening. You come out of meditation, you're in the matrix, but you know it's false. And so from that moment on, you can do true actions that give you true results, and not just some list of things that you hope will give you some results. From that point on, you begin to habituate your mind, your experience, your practice, with certainty like you've never had before. With certainty that I know exactly how things are going to work out. And then you don't fear what happens to you. You don't have this restrictive human, whatever you call this thing, we're all afraid of this thing. You don't have that anymore, because you know a truth for certain and without question. You don't need anybody's authority, you don't need anybody. So you just need to do the work to habituate your experience to be congruent with the truth that you saw.
No more doubt.
No more doubt. That's what goes to the path of seeing. Yeah? The first of the cessations, for those of you. So then, in the path of habituation, there's a couple of examples in the Dharmakaya Sutra, the one Keep Killinga, I won't talk about it now. And for those of you who are interested, who are in that higher motivation, that's the 10 bodhisattva bhumis start at the path of seeing, and the first 8 happen through the path of habituation. Another story. And then the last path is not really a path, is Meloplam.
Wait, it's bodhisattva what?
Bhumi means ground, or a step, if you like.
No, which, like, didn't you say it was...
Level 1 through to 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and then this 5th path that marks you is not really a path, it's actually the destination, if you like. It's called No More Learning. It's actually Nirvana, if you've been doing this for motivation to get out on your own, or Buddhahood if you've done this with a little inkling that you want to help other sentient beings, you've got bodhisattva, Bauhaus or bodhicitta, etc. I've used lots of words that for new Buddhists might be weird. So forgive me for that. But I wanted to share with you what these 5 major steps in any spiritual career that can let you be more than human, a deeper sense of who you are, look like, described through the lens of Buddha. Yeah? And I believe if you look for any other tradition that is verifiable, or any other tradition that's practiced and has given results, you will find similarities to these paths, or these steps, or descriptions of this map, because humans have lived this labyrinth on this planet since humans have been here. And this truth, being a truth, this water that we're in, is accessible to us anytime we choose to step into it. And surrender could be a word, get real could be a word. Whatever it is that lets you step in is what it is for you. And that's what I've got to say about Buddhism. I'm sorry it took 20 minutes longer. Thank you for coming. Thank you. For those of you who are coming to Nepal, we have some great news. We just got